Hey NASA, this is Eric Sanderson. I'm a principal investigator at the Wildlife Conservation Society working on a NASA eco-forecasting project to build a near real-time monitoring system for tiger conservation. Um, as you know, tigers are a really potent and important symbol of ecology, of wildness, and of wildlife all across Asia. Originally, they were distributed as far west as Turkey and as far east as Vietnam and north across all of China and up into Russia. And we're working with the existing 10 tiger range states and the international conservation community to try and build this tool to provide close to real-time information about how tiger habitat is changing, the availability of that tiger habitat, and whether that tiger habitat is occupied. And this will help countries make specific decisions about what they want to do in different landscapes to try and improve the status of tigers. And it will help the international community, the tiger range states, working with the conservation community to assess the range-wide status of tigers and to see that through time.
Hey there, I'm Matt Ryder with Point Blue Conservation Science and the PI on the Ecological Forecasting Project, integrating remote sensing and ecological forecasting into decision support for wetland wildlife management and ecosystem services in the Central Valley of California, optimizing across multiple benefits. And while that's quite a long title, the objective of this project was relatively simple, and that was to answer the question of where and when to put water out on the Central Valley landscape in order to maximize ecosystem benefits. This question was largely driven by our key cost-share partners, the Nature Conservancy and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who really seek to maximize habitat for migratory water birds on managed wetlands and private agricultural lands in the Central Valley. And, by leveraging the high spatially and temporally resolved data available from NASA satellites, we're now able to generate the needed tools and analytics to really efficiently and effectively guide the allocation of resources to those sites that really can have the maximum benefit for wildlife and the maximum return on investment. So within our specified budget, where do we put this? Where do we invest? And while this project really continues to generate the sort of important scientific publications, perhaps its most important contribution may be the ability to use these analytics to guide the allocation of over $300,000 to generate more than 10,000 acres of wetland habitat on private lands over the last year. So really, these pop-up wetlands now are being put where and when they're needed most to have that benefit for migratory shorebirds, waterfowl, giant garter snakes, and even groundwater recharge. So truly multi-benefit conservation, both in average years, but as well as in years of drought, right? Adapting to this threat that really affects California. Our project would not even been possible without the support of NASA Applied Sciences, and particularly within the Ecological Forecast Program from Woody Turner, Laura Rogers, and Jay Skiles.
I'm Marion Marigot. I'm a capacity building and biodiversity specialist. We're partners in a broad group of scientists that receive funding for two projects called the NASA Life on Land and the NASA Forest Integrated Project. We're using NASA remote sensing data to co-develop high-resolution information on forest condition, human pressure, forest integrity, and forest connectivity around the world. We can also project change to 2100 in forest structure and composition, vertebrate habitats, and water risk under scenarios of climate, socioeconomics, and policy. Governments are working with us to use these Earth observations to make challenging development decisions and translate data into action.
Hello, I am Leah Phillips, and I am a spatial data and biodiversity analyst. These projects are helping us build critical policymaking tools like UN Biodiversity Lab. This free online spatial platform provides decision makers with the best available spatial data on nature, climate, and sustainable development. We can now help nations better monitor their international commitments on biodiversity, forests, and climate, and access, analyze, and use Earth observations for decision-making without specialized training or tools. These capacities are not otherwise available to those without expertise with GIS software.
I'm Nicole Awil-Gomez. I'm the country director for the WCS Belize program, and we're really delighted to be partnering in this NASA project. The Belize Barrier Reef Reserve System is one of the most important ecosystems for this country, both ecologically and economically. And this project really helps us to understand the emerging and the existing conditions that could degrade our precious reef system, and that would be related to climate change and nutrient influx and sedimentation.
Background, I'm Sherilyn Anderson, or Dr. Sherilyn Anderson. I work at the Park Service and I'm supporting Neil Carter's wilderness risk mapping. The Organic Act of 1916 created the National Park Service. This act declared that the National Park Service has a dual mission. One, to conserve park resources, and two, to provide for their use and enjoyment now and in the future. This sensory mapping project makes significant contributions to our scientific understanding of the effects of noise and light pollution on the integrity of wildlife habitat that we protect. These geospatial management tools allow for cutting-edge science to identify priority locations for mitigation and preservation. The tool allows for scientists and park staff to analyze proposals that impact threatened species and provides the scientific evidence to offer mitigation suggestions. The simplicity of the tool makes it great for interpretive programs and talking about the effects of cities on recreation areas and wildlife. For example, the effects of light and noise pollution on the mountain lions of Santa Monica Mountains and the black bears of the Great Smokies.
Hello, I'm Heather Lynch from Stony Brook University, and our ecosystem forecasting project was entitled Bayesian Data Model Synthesis for Biological Conservation in Antarctica. What does it actually mean? It means we created an interactive application called MAPPed, or the Mapping Application for Penguin Populations and Projected Dynamics. This application allows anyone to search everything that is known about the distribution and abundance of Antarctic penguins and to explore models showing how the populations have fluctuated over time and forecasts of how their populations might change in the future. So who exactly did we build this app for? Well, it turns out this information is useful for a lot of people. Our primary project partner was a Washington, DC-based NGO called Oceanites, which is dedicated to Antarctic monitoring and conservation. Oceanites and its president and founder, Ron Naveen, have been working in the Antarctic for decades, and the mapped application allowed them to bring together in one place all the information needed to support the Antarctic community in its use of the best available science. One of the motivations for the mapped application was the development of satellite imagery as a new methodology for surveying penguin colonies, which rapidly expanded the amount of information available, but made it harder to organize. At the same time, increased information on penguin populations allowed for new types of modeling that allowed us for the first time to start studying not just select colonies around the continent, but actually all of the colonies in Antarctica at the same time.